You can see, well, you just missed, but I'll put this on here. The short that I took, um, ignore all that. But here I took a short, and how I evaluated it was, I think it's there at 11:10. Okay. How I evaluated it was, this is what I'm focused on right here. Take those off because they're not helpful. How I evaluated that was, I watched price come into a breaker that is below liquidity and could have held price, could have supported price. It comes in at 23 and then rallies, comes back down. The 10:30 time frame doesn't touch any liquidity or anything like that. It just goes up to this daily imbalance, pushes back down, and then something I'm evaluating is this turning point algorithm or macro or whatever. More than once, so many times I've seen price turn at specific times, and I've always wondered if it made any difference or mattered. And as I've been tracking it, what I evaluated this morning was, we're coming into my price. We don't get there at 10:30. If we get there right at 10:30, then you can buy it, right? That's the idea. But we don't. We get there ahead of time. And it appears that, and by the way, the macro here is 6 minutes after the time. So 9:15, 9:30, 9:45, 10 o'clock. Just evaluating that on a frame by frame by frame, just taking it forward and saying, what does it mean? And all I'm doing is closing in the bodies of those prices at that time. And then what does it do? So you have an attack ahead of time, which actually reverses out of that turning point. So it kind of looks like a turning point. Then you come down and it creates another one, and you appear to go lower, hold, lower, reverse out of it. And you reverse out of it all the way back up to the previous turning point, which also happens to have a early and very tiny on the 15-minute breaker right there. So the reason I wanted to make this is to point out a couple of things. Or, in a lot of cases, you'd be like, well, I wanted it to get up there and it didn't, and that looks perfect, but it didn't get there. So how do you evaluate price instead, and do so in a way that where you're not trying to chase it, you're just trying to understand what it's doing? So what I am experimenting with is the idea that we attack ahead of time, but then during this turning point, we actually turn. And then we come back down, and we're waiting for 45. So what does this turning point do? Well, right at 45, it tests the bottom of it, fakes it, and goes higher. So then you wait for the next turning point. And what does that do? It gets all the way to the top, appears like it may go lower, and then goes even higher to another turning point where it doesn't get to the fair value. And let me just mark off where that breaker price is. It's right there. That's on the 15-minute. Okay. So this takes a little bit of work to understand, but look what happens. Right at 10:57, so ahead of 11, before 11, it doesn't even get to the price. It goes up. This bar has closed above all of these, so you always got to be conscious that it can become an order block as soon as we reverse on it. We test that breaker. What happens? Price immediately reverses, tests up, and then sends it lower into this turning point at what time? 11. Now, are we deep enough to be at a turning point higher? No, I was looking for this area right here to hold us up. But what does it do? It holds up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So does it get there before within the window? No, it doesn't. So are we buying it? No, we're waiting for the next turning point. 6 to 8. What does that do? Does it close below the mean of this? Yes, it does. So it means that we're going through, which is where I was targeting this low here. Now, if you walk all the way back to, I assume I'm still, yeah, I am. Okay. If you walk all the way back to the very top, look what happened. Why is that? That's interesting. Oh, I see. I see. So I didn't mark this off, and that's characteristic of me, of not marking stuff off that's way off because I don't want my screens to be really messed up and see a bunch of stuff that I don't want to see. But this area is a fair value gap from way back, and I'm just going to change the color of it to red because it's a fair value gap. And what happens? You've got this high day where I completely expect a turtle soup. Well, what time do I expect a turtle soup? Right at 9:30. What happens at 9:30? Well, we open up and we don't get there. 9:31. So within 9:35, by 9:35, do we get any reversals of price where we close below or go below the low of the previous bar? We don't. So then you know that we're waiting for, well, I don't know. I'm testing the theory that I'm waiting for a turning point algorithm. So what happens? The turning point algorithm does what? 6, 7, 8, right? This leaves fair value here, here, and here. It tests down to fair value, rolls back up. And at what time does it do that? 41. So we're waiting for 45. What happens at 45? We've closed back inside of the turning point. So probably higher after testing fair value. So probably higher. Did we go higher? Yep. And I thought we would go right through this and maybe turn at 10. Then what happens? Well, we're at 45. So now we're looking for 1, 2, 3. So not 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 1, 2, 3, 51, 52, 53. And I actually have this wrong. 51, 52. 53. Okay. And do you notice that they're right inside of the original turning point? Well, that's interesting. That's a consolidation. Okay. Don't know if that means anything. Then they hold and they go higher and we close higher than this order block. So we should be going higher. But if we reverse down, then that becomes an order block. If it happens at time. So then you have an order block and a fair value gap. Walk through the time. 51, 53. So now what are we waiting for? We're waiting for 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, what happens? We test fair value and order block and sharply reverse down. So if you nest all of that, you say you're in a 5-minute fair value gap. The turning point, this doesn't tell you anything. This gives you the indication. And then this is the sort of the signature that it's that if we don't shoot through that, then we are going lower. And then by this point, it's too late to really join anything. It's headed down. So then here again, 10:05. What did it get to? So now that's the next thing. So are we now bullish? Well, did we get to is this the turtle? So okay, so that really becomes the question. Is this the turtle soup, or is this just a retracement to take on this turtle, this long here? I think the answer is not easy for me to say. But you're expecting a turtle soup. And honestly, turtle soups usually happen quickly. And so what do you have in your favor here that may help you? One would be Wednesday high week. That's the possibility. Two, you have, and let me just do it. 1, 2, you have holding below 5-minute fair value gap. Now watch this. This is important because on the 1 minute, we only have 2 bars that go above it. But look at the 5-minute. All of the bars are below it. Look at the 15. All the bars are in the bottom quarter. Look at the 1 hour. It's not on there. Okay, that's strange. It's not on there. So 86 to 1875. 86 125. Is that? Confuse myself. To 19. Okay, let's just put it at 19. 19. Yeah, so it's well below the median. It's well below half. And the clue might have been that we closed at 9 o'clock below the half. So then we're thinking, okay, well, that might be a turning point. I'm not saying, you got to be careful of thinking that it is. So as you look at this on the 5-minute, does this here, I mean, if you bring this back on a replay, I wanted to go back one more bar than that, but does that look like we're going lower? It does. And at 9:50, it looks like we're going lower. So, if we go back to the 1 minute, we have Wednesday high of week. All time frames but 1 minute holding below a 5-minute fair value gap. And then okay, so it is so let's start at the very top. It is bullish conditions. Extreme premium. Then we have the potential for a Wednesday high of week, all time frames but one holding below a 5-minute fair value gap, extremely overbought conditions, and then if you wanted to add to that, which it would be a new thing, turning point algo shows the creation of a local premium array, which is tested and holds at 10 a.m. with no news. So is that repeatable? What are all the steps that you had to go through? You had to know that it was bullish conditions with extreme premium. Wednesday high of week. All time frames holding below an array, but in this case, a fair value gap. It was extremely overbought. We're high in premium. Look at that on the hourly. So where are we going? We're probably going right here when we already did. So we're going to go down to this premium, right? Go down to this discount right there. And then we're going to start to bounce. At what time? 11:30, 11:45. So I ask again, is that repeatable? I think it is, but it's going to take a lot of practice. And I think I've been doing this when I'm doing well. This is the thing that I'm doing. So that's what I wanted to record this morning.